All right, so today's exercise is exercise 4. And to be fair, we're definitely splitting this project up, right? Some of you guys, of course, are still working on assignment 3. Wonderful. Keep in mind, that's still not due until next Tuesday, so you still have the weekend to, of course, finalize it. Some of you guys already have 3 models. And again, we'll be doing a Miro screenshot pinup today, right, by the end of class. That could just be wherever you are, whether you're still working on grids or you've got final 3 models, right? So again, breaking it up into bits and pieces, now we're just going to focus on stairs and rails in general, right? I mean, we're not necessarily going to put them together until a little bit later on, right? We almost want to make all the components first, and then I'll show you how to put them together, right? It's a little bit easier, especially for some of us if this is your first time ever modeling stairs or ramps or rails. However, that being said, it's also where I start to introduce Grasshopper and the military projection, also referred to as axonometric drawing, right? But in our case, I'm just going to get right into the steps, right? Of course, number 1, make sure abstraction is saved, perhaps hide in the same file. I'm going to skip that step and just start a new file, right? Because you can definitely do it both ways. And you can also just start keeping track in the same gigantic file that maybe is just called Computer Graphics Fall 2025. Secondly, it says start with using a top, front, and side views to create the necessary profiles. Step 3, complete run of stairs as needed. Step 4, copy and continue the process until reaching the 60-foot height mark. Step 5, rails obviously is last, and we can definitely use pipe and other sweep 1 and sweep 2 in order to make some of those things. Of course, some of the needs, obviously vertical circulation that reaches to the top deck. And keep in mind, we are making a observation tower, and we do want to go from the bottom stair all the way to the 60th stair. That being said, if each stair is, of course, a rise of 6 inches and a run of 12 inches, 60 feet is going to give us a whopping 120 stairs, right? Obviously, 60 times 2. To be fair, once you start getting ramps involved and those kinds of things, which, by the way, for a ramp, we'll use a 1 to 12 ratio. And, of course, I'll explain that as well. That's ADA, at least in the United States. Other countries vary. But that being said, of course, it needs vertical circulation that gets all the way to the top, and you definitely want to have at least some other floor planes, right? Almost think. Have you guys ever seen a picture of like an ant tunnel, right? How like you have little tunnels and then there's a space, little more tunnels and then there's a space. Ideally, it would be really nice if our observation towers just didn't have a spiral stair all the way to the top and just ended there. Definitely, we're gonna want some variation, as you'll see today. There's definitely ways we can do that, and we can do it pretty quickly. That being said, I do have actually a pretty awesome time lapse already on my profile of YouTube, and just in case you want to see where this can go, I won't necessarily do that wild of a stair today. I don't want to scare anybody away, but there are definitely some cool things that you can do with stairs and rails. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on my second desktop and get over there. Sweet. So let's go ahead and get started. And of course, since this is a new file, you definitely always want to type in units, not units, units. Of course, when doing so, I'm going to make sure that it's in feet. And very often I'll actually change it from decimal to feet and inches as well, right? Just because I like those measurements a little bit better. First, we want to make some sort of bounding box. In our case, it'll be that same 30 by 30, or I can't remember. Can somebody help me remember the abstract designs? Did I tell you 30 by 30 or 25 by 25? 30 by 30. Wonderful. So let's stick to that. And in my case, I'm going to use the color orange. I've noticed actually in the screen recordings that the color red kind of like freaks out and like disappears sometimes. So I do apologize. I did notice in my old videos orange seems to do better. So I'm going to go ahead and use orange just in case you're wondering. But let's go ahead and start labeling. I'm going to say stairs. I mean, why not? Could also right click and rename. And again, this is something we can do at the beginning or end, but I do want to practice what I preach, at least try to. I'm going to start off in 0, 0 land and go with 30 feet by 30 feet. Wonderful. So we have a 30 30 box. We can even check it by typing dimension. And of course, my computer's already messing up. As you can see, I have OSNAP on. But like I was showing Doves the other day, it doesn't really want to snap there. That's okay. I'll go ahead and file save. And let's try something out. We'll put this on my desktop for now. And let's go ahead and close that real quick. Honestly, sorry guys, like I said, the new OS is not exactly my best friend. However, I've noticed just restarting actually helps a lot. And just like that, suddenly works. So it has 9,144 millimeters. Yeah, it's still in millimeters. Of course, if you double click on this, you can of course change it to another unit, usually. In my case, maybe not. Not a big deal today, but don't really have the time to... Oh, it's in feet. Okay, interesting. Either way, I'll let you figure that out in your own time. But we have our 30 by 30. Let's also make it by 60 feet. So I'm going to use another rectangle. I'm going to snap, hopefully. Oh God, it's doing it again. Get out of here. Save. Hopefully I don't have to do this too many times. I do apologize. It does seem to happen when I switch views, so I'll try and stay in this perspective view. Let's try that for today. So let's stick to our 30 by 30, and in our case, 60 feet. Awesome. So I'll take that one, I can rotate it, or I could just use gumball, and of course move that. So move. And more or less, I just want to give myself some sort of bounding box. I could mirror it as well, especially if you kind of wanted to see all sides. Sometimes I like to have all three to kind of make this faux box, right? Well, let's go ahead and start making some stairs. Now, to be fair, we can do a lot of things here, and I would say go at your own pace. It's okay if it's a boring stair or if it's simply like a simple fire stair that just goes back and forth. By all means, this won't be your last stair that you ever make, but it may be the first stair for some of us. So in our case, I'm going to go ahead and draw it first in 2 dimensions. So I can start off with something like, I don't know, a 4-foot stair, right? And of course, maybe go in this direction. And then eventually maybe have another square here. So I'm going to go with another 4 by 4 square. So 4 feet by 4 feet. Pretty sweet. You know, I'm not always intentionally trying to rhyme, but I notice I do that a lot. Anyway, let's draw another line. And for the lack of just, you know, let's just make a simple stair that goes up here, goes up again, lands, and goes up again, right? To be fair, there's definitely several ways and styles of stairs, right? You have the floating stairs, you have floating panels, you have the toe kick, you have all kinds of stuff. However, keep in mind we do want to stay at 6 to 12 runs. So that being the case, I like to use at least the profile method probably the most, right? Now, I don't want to necessarily switch views, but I'm going to have to. Maybe if I do all 4 views, I'll be okay. Okay, still locking on. Very good. So in my case, I'm going to use 6 inches. Enter. And I'm going to use this view so that I know it goes up, right? And so that I know it goes across, I can go this way, right? I can type in 12. And theoretically, that's about all I need right there. Just one, right? Because of course I can copy it, use that same point, and basically attach it to the same. As you can see, definitely starting to look like stairs. But let's go as far as we can. And to be fair, we could actually go a lot faster and copy multiple at a time. Now, of course, we could sit here and copy those, but dang, I almost got it. So clearly, one too many steps, and that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and take all of those and join them. Typing in join and enter. Should be one solid piece. Wonderful. And as you could imagine, if you start to extrude it here, it's just going to be, well, a flat surface. And that's okay. I mean, it definitely looks like stairs. And if we switch to a shaded view, it definitely appears like stairs, but it's actually relatively flat, almost as if we bent a single piece of plastic or metal, right? So definitely not exactly what we want. So we definitely want to get the rest of the profile. And one way to do that is, of course, to actually just trace what you already have. Now, in my case, it looks like my OSnap stopped working. You know, I'm going to test something real quick and just turn off my OSnap, turn it back on, see if that helps. Again, I do apologize, but yeah, it's not exactly locking in, which is very annoying. I'm going to go ahead and save and do this as fast as possible. At least it opens quickly. But again, you probably won't have that problem. Again, iOS 26, I don't recommend it, right? And there is absolutely proof. But I do want to start off with that diagonal, and I can go ahead and offset it. So I'm going to go ahead and offset, bless you. And well, typically it's about 6 to 12 inches if it were concrete or something like that. So I'm going to go with 6 inches and basically push it out that way. Now, of course, I can delete the original. And yeah, now we start to at least have somewhat of a thickness. Uh-oh, I accidentally offset it the wrong way. So let's make sure that in the right view, that it offsets the correct direction. Offset. And let's go with, yep, 6 inches. And that's looking pretty good. I'll go ahead and delete the original. But now it seems like we have the bottom stair and the tops of the stair. Now we still need to connect the rest of it. So of course we can do that. We could either fillet edge, right? And it's going to match there. I could also take that original and just chop it off with some trim. So TRIM. And of course get rid of whatever I don't need. Next is this piece as well. Again, I can fillet as well, which is kind of like if you've ever used Revit, right? You can definitely use TR or trim, those kinds of things. Not sure what that connected to, so let's try that again. And maybe we can actually use that line to trim it as well. Actually, let's try it. TRIM. And let's see if we can get rid of that. Sweet. But already right away, we can take each of those pieces and again, join them to make one closed curve. And I bet you can kind of see where this is going, right? I think I have a line there. Ooh, I don't. I thought I did, but I guess I trimmed the wrong one. That's okay. I'll take my regular line tool and just make sure it's connected. I'll take that single line and connect it to the rest. So, join. Again, if I wanted to check if it was a closed curve, I could type in what. And basically it'll tell me everything about it. Valid curve. Ooh, open polyline with 55 points. So it's still open. What can I do on a magical basis? I can say close curve. And since it's going to be probably really hard to find what that was, it did close one curve. So I definitely did have a little space in there, and that's okay. But that being said, it is a perfectly flat profile in sort of an elevation view. And let's maybe see that a little bit better. And now we can definitely extrude this whole piece. So when we extrude, in my case, I do want to make sure that it's solid, right? And of course, go to the other side. Voila, just like that. We have arguably one of the better stairs that I've seen in architecture, right? This would definitely be enough for just about any studio. However, I mean, let's go over some other ways to make some stairs, right? So for instance, we could do this still with actually some kind of floating stairs. So again, I'm going to take this piece that I already have. I'm going to make a copy. I'm going to put it in the same spot. So I'm going to copy in place. That way I can basically just move it wherever I'd like. Now in my case, these are also known as the stringer, right? Sometimes you'll have a left stringer and a right stringer to a stair, or a middle stringer, like if you have a cool 1978 sort of floating stair. So I do want to make you one of those as well, just to show you that it's more or less kind of the similar process. In my case, another cool thing that you could technically do is select each of these points, right? So for instance, I can select that point, I can hold shift, kind of select all these points, and I can even give it kind of a toe kick pretty easily without necessarily drawing the whole thing again. Obviously just using some geometry and a little bit of critical thinking, I can do really cool stuff like that, of course, to add further detail to our stairs. At the end of the day, it really is detail. You know, it's kind of, they often say the devil's in the detail or the God's in the details. But it really goes without saying, you can definitely start to really impress and have really great renders the more details that you have in your sculpting. In our case, sculpting stairs. So let's try that again. In our case, we're going to extrude curve. And instead of going a full stair, I'm just going to go, I don't know, about 2 inches, right? To kind of give it, you know, that stringer. Definitely looks like something that you'd find at Home Depot. Sometimes they even have these already cut for us. Next thing, yeah.
How did you do that to a picture? Or select all those?
Well, basically I just, yeah, I'll go back. Great question. I took the whole thing and then I just actually got the bottoms of these points, right? So if I hold shift, I can select multiple points, right? I'll select more. Now be careful, I'm accidentally like selecting some other lines, so I might actually want to do it in that view. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll take that one, And to be fair, yeah, I mean, the time that it takes here is actually selecting the lines and then pushing them back, right? To be fair, we could have just drew it that way as well, right? But good question. And I'm going to go ahead and extrude again. Actually, I wasn't digging the thickness there, so I'm going to go with like 6 inches. Yeah, it definitely looks a little bulkier, definitely strong enough to maybe start holding some stairs. That being said, we can actually do a couple things here, such as extrude face, right? So if you type in extrude, and not just the surface itself, because it's actually going to get multiple of them. Oh man, I don't have extrude face anymore. That's okay. We'll make the box ourselves, actually, in this view. Now, that's the one previously below us, so I can take that one and hide it real quick. And hide it real quick. Sweet. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw that box, or piece that I need. And so something like, I don't know, something like that. Maybe kind of thin, maybe it kind of goes over. That's pretty sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude that one. And we'll go with, again, 4 feet for our piece. And then we'll align it, right? Maybe to a midpoint. To be fair, I don't have to do that over and over again. I could take actually the same points. So I'm going to go ahead and copy. And in my case, I'm going to take a relatively familiar point and just go to the next point. And I think you can see where this is going. Nothing really too hard here though, right? Honestly, I think it's a lot of fun. But we can really start to get special when it comes to designing the stairs. Which, to be fair, usually one of the first things you're learning in the first 2 years of architecture is really vertical and horizontal circulation. Which, by the way, means a lot of stairs and ramps and elevators and cores. Anyway. Well, let's get the rest of those. Not too shabby. Yeah, not too shabby at all. Right. Of course, let's show both stairs. And in my case, yeah, this would definitely be much more of like a precast concrete situation, and possibly even a steel and maybe regular wood situation, right? Definitely viable, both viable for this project, right? However, there's definitely even more stairs that you could probably tackle, but I'll let you discover that on your own. That being the case, let's continue. And yeah. No, not at all. I just actually clicked onto the next guideline point, right? So the next reference point, right? Basically from the one that I copied. Great question. But let's continue, right? And particularly, I just wanted to kind of show how to model that. To be fair, there's a lot of pieces involved for today, so I'll go ahead and delete that for now. It's just not necessary. Again, I just wanted to show it for the sake of tutorial. But really the next parts and pieces, let's go all the way to the top, right? And to be fair, let's say I was going the easy route. Obviously, for some of us, I really want you to kind of take this to the next level. So for instance, I mean, what else could I do with that profile, right? So for instance, I could take this out. I could draw something of this sort. Awesome. And now I can actually take this piece and sweep it. So if I type in sweep 1, it's going to ask for the rail. Awesome. It's going to ask for the profile. Awesome. Enter again. And maybe a few too many times, right? Obviously in our case, whoa, it kind of overlapped on itself. So actually kind of interesting if you ask me. Right? And I could possibly use that, right, to say the very least. Kind of interesting. Let's try that again. Maybe on a simpler line. So let's try it this way. Oh, I was actually going for a polyline. And let's maybe not go so big this time. There we go. Let's try that again. Rail. So sweep 1. It's going to ask for the rail. It's going to ask for the profile. No. There's the profile. So of course, make sure you get the right one. Ah, okay. Well, that's definitely a little bit more usable. How many of you guys have ever struggled with stairs? You know what I mean? Again, now using these sweep tools with different profiles with different closed pieces actually makes us a little bit more effective. And we could actually get that to make a snake. We can make it to say the letter S if we wanted to. We could do all kinds of things. But really what's important here is to know how to use the tool, right? Again, these are already tools that I've introduced: extruding, drawing, and simply just a sweep. And letting the computer really do the work for you, not necessarily sitting there and making every single step, right? How many of you guys have already done that before, right? Make it sitting there, making every step. This would have taken me a couple of hours if I did it kind of step by step, no pun intended. But with a sweep and just a regular piece, we can get pretty far. However, again, that was just for tutorial and so that I can show you some really cool stuff. Next, in my case, I'm pretty sure it's either move face or something to do with face. Usually we can actually extrude face. It's also called push and pull in some cases, especially if you've ever used SketchUp. And if you're in Rhino 8, I believe you can actually push and pull. But I don't actually know if it's called push and pull. Hey, look at that. It's called push and pull. So to be fair, you can actually use push and pull. This only applies to those of us who have Rhino 8. So if you're on the school computer, definitely can do it. If you have my version of the Windows Rhino 7, can't necessarily do this, right? However, one thing that we could do is actually extrude the face. So I'm just going to type in face because I have a feeling, is it split face, merge face, append face, delete face, set face loop, tween face? That's pretty cool. I'm pretty sure it's move face, but I have a feeling that's going to do a lot more than we actually want. Yeah, that's what I thought. Still honestly kind of cool if you think about it, but let's try that again. Pretty sure we can extrude face, but I don't see it. Yeah, but it's going to get all the surfaces maybe. Oh, okay, well, extruding surface. And to be fair, what's nice about that is, well, it actually works in Rhino 7 and Rhino 8. So let's go ahead and use that. And I thought it was actually going to apply to all surfaces. Thank you, Cole. It is face by face, right? So definitely useful. I'm going to hit spacebar and basically tell it to align to a certain item. From there, I can continue designing, right? I could be like, well, I want it to come out maybe another 4 feet. I could type in 4 feet. And we can keep going, right? From here, I could actually take this whole piece and just copy it, right? I mean, why do that all over again? So I'm going to, of course, copy. We can take a familiar point and, of course, put it there. In my case, all I need to do is now rotate it. So I'm going to type in rotate and basically pick, again, a familiar point. Hold shift, right? And fake it till I make it, right? So in my case, maybe move that and put it in a better position. And of course, my OSnap stops working. Oh, there it goes. Man, that was weird. Anyway, the things I go through for updates. Anyway, that's looking pretty good so far, right? Not too shabby. And to be fair, it's only been like 5 minutes. Anyway, let's continue, because obviously I have a situation where, it's going right to the edge, and I'm already meeting my boundary, right? Which is a good thing I make that kind of box, right? So again, since this is a solid part, we can wire cut it, right? We could do all kinds of things. We could trim it. But in my case, maybe I want to take off a couple of steps, and of course my OSnap is being weird. There we go. I'm just going to use a line, and I should have held shift, my bad. Hold shift and basically wire cut that off. In my case, I do need to change the direction to a Z direction. Voila, voila. All right, we'll take that off and continue. Now, obviously, I should have picked probably a better line. There we go. I did pick a better line. Good for me. But from there, again, now we can make that extrude face, right? Or sorry, extrude surface, or push and pull, right? To be fair, the only reason I don't like push or pull, because if you accidentally go the wrong direction, it'll minus from things, and we don't necessarily want to do that. It's basically like somebody put extrude surface and wire cut into one little command. So don't get me wrong, it definitely has its usefulness, but again, maybe limiting for some of us. But that's looking pretty good. And as you can see, my OSnap is like having a hard time. Anyway, 4 feet, and from there, not too shabby. Now let's maybe talk about a ramp, because we do need to calculate that a little bit. And to be fair, if I go 12 feet, how many feet do I need to go up? 1, because that would be 12 12-to-1 ratio. If I go 24 feet, how many feet do I need to go up for a ramp? 2, right? Because that would still be a 1-to-12 ratio, right? And here's what I mean by that. So first I'll extrude the piece first. So extrude surface, take that piece, spacebar, and of course take it out. In my case, I'm going to type in 12. Now this is where move face will actually come in play. I'll definitely take this piece, I'll move face, I'll take that little one right there, enter, and it's going to be like, hey, where do you want it? In my case, it's going to freeze up on the screen, of course. So let me save it real quick. Sorry. Maybe I can cut these out, but again, at least it's quick. So let's try that again. Move face. Awesome. At least it's trying. So in my case, I do need to move it up 1 foot. So I'm basically, if you can kind of see that little preview, I just need to move it up 1 foot. So 12 inches, enter. Make sure I hold shift to keep it straight. And voila, right? We got ourselves a ramp. From there, we can further extrude it. So extrude face, or sorry, extrude surface. And we'll go out again, say another 4 feet. Now, one thing that I haven't expressed yet, and you probably heard this in studio before, but really landings should be at minimum the same distance as the width of your stair. So if you have a 5-foot stair, you need a 5-foot depth of your landing, right? Just in case you didn't know. Now, to be fair, it can go infinitely, right? I mean, well, there's not infinite amount of material, but I digress. It just needs to be at minimum the same as the width. So as you'll see, I usually tend to make these things kind of square. To be fair though, we can do lots of stuff with this, right? I mean, it's not actually connected, so keep that in mind. We will need to Boolean union, but let's keep going. I mean, why not? We've got this piece right here. I mean, why work harder when I can work smarter? And I can take that piece and of course keep going. Now, in my case, that's not really the best way to go, so I'm going to move that again and actually choose something that looks at least a little bit more realistic. To be fair, I could put those together, so Boolean union. And yeah, it's not highly noticeable, but it is noticeable, right? So maybe there's a better way, right? Let's take that off. Let's go back to a shaded view. And let's go ahead and move it and put it somewhere a little bit better, right? So in my case, maybe that exact piece. Could go over and overlap like that. It's not a huge big deal. It kind of breaks the rule though, right? I mean, that's technically, well, a foot less of a landing. That would not be allowed to code. And the reason I do some of those things is so that I can at least point out that no, bad, right? Slap your hand. But another thing we can do is actually add on to it. So this is usually what we do for stairs, is have this magical situation where things are joined at the edge, which is just a little unrealistic. So what we could do is, of course, fill that in. So I'll use a polyline and basically just trace that triangle. Sweet. I will make sure that it's closed, and I'll type in what, and yeah, it'll say valid curve, closed polyline with 3 points. Wonderful. Because I don't want to sit there all day and find out. Extrude, curve, and obviously go to the other side. Well, not that far, but to the other side. Voila. We can sort of fill those blocks in as well, and we could further use them. I could join them all together, and we should get a better piece. Voila. Right? Definitely not bad. And potentially, eventually, I can do that to all of these pieces, right? That way, when I, of course, go into a rendered mode, it starts to look pretty smooth and pretty nice. But let's continue, because I do have about halfway to go, and we have about 23 minutes or so. So let's keep going. Let's go all the way to the top, and let's get some rails and things like that as well. So we got this piece going all the way. For the sake of tutorial, I can break the box. I mean, I can break the rules, right? And you can too, to be fair. So extrude surface. And let's go with 4 feet. Some of you guys are probably already doing it right now, and you're like just going away at it, right? I would say, especially if you're in Design 3 or Design 4, guys, I want to see some of your best stairs yet, right? Let's see something kind of wild here. There's no limitations here. I want to see MC Escher's crazy stair. I want to go up. I want to go down, and maybe even have some levels involved, such as like, okay, think about it. Maybe I go, man, still no resting point. I gotta go. Maybe there's a resting point up here, right? I mean, that's a lot of stairs, right, to say the very least. But maybe we make a resting point. So I'm gonna extrude. And we're going to take that out maybe, I don't know, 10 feet. Why not? But now we have a nice resting area, and now we can continue as well. So we'll go 4 feet and make another stair here. I'll go ahead and take that one, copy, because why would I do that all over again when I can just totally copy it? Okay. Again, I'd probably select a better point. But for the sake of tutorial, I've already kind of gone over how we can fix some little pieces like that. So I'll leave that for now. Let's continue. Same thing, extrude surface. Select the face. Fairly easy, at least compared to probably what some of you guys are trying to achieve. Especially some of us who have already taken Studio and have had to make hundreds of stairs for large projects like the competition, right? I mean, I'm sure some of us have spent a day or two, like myself when I was a student, wondering how the heck am I supposed to make better? There must be a better way, right? I'm going to add another ramp because I don't know, I feel like it. So I'm going to go out 12 feet again just to make it easier on the math. And again, so we can see that process of moving this face again. So move face. Now that's something push and pull can't do, right? Can't just move the face. Are you kidding me? 12 inches. And enter. Again, extrude. To be fair, I'm kind of going fast so I can actually get to the rail portion. Oh yeah, absolutely. It'll stay in that. So Cole brings up a really good point. The reason the extrude face is kind of working kind of almost like a push-pull is because the face itself is already at a 90-degree angle. But what Cole has actually definitely brought attention to is if you control the rotation of that face, it'll go the same 90-degree normal direction of that face too. Absolutely. To be fair, you could also make this trapezoidal shape and you can extrude that too, but that does take a lot more calculation, drawing, and things like that too. To be fair, like I've said before, there's usually about 15 ways to do the exact same thing in Rhino, but arguably there's easier ways and there's definitely ways that are a little bit more advanced or even have more clicking involved. However, for the sake of tutorial, I'm going to leave it like this for today and let's start putting some rails and some guardrails, right? So I like to do it a really easy way that I came up with. And I'm sure somebody came up with it before me, but as soon as I discovered it, I was like, oh my gosh. So in my case, I'm going to make sure that I'm in another layer, by the way. Keep that in mind. You definitely want to have 2 layers for these things, one being stairs and one being rails, because essentially there starts to be a lot of parts. And to be fair, it's one of those things that is not exactly easy to modify or edit. So I like to do it all in one piece. So I'm going to declare that this purple color is my rails, and I'm going to type in polyline. And I'm simply going to trace my stairs, right? So in my case, I'm going to trace this stair and try to keep it as uniform as possible. And again, I can kind of make this all one continuous piece. If you know anything about stairs, you know that you have to either decide here or decide right into that corner. So a good thing I already have that point there. And I'm going to use that diagonal. Sorry, the purple is a little hard to see. I do apologize. I do want them on the rails as well, so we'll put that there. And again, just tracing basically the outline of my piece. Whoa! There we go. So again, we'll go up to the top. We'll literally go around this piece. We don't want people to fall on their break. And again, just tracing the whole thing. To be fair, I kind of left it on this situation on purpose. That way I could really show you that it really can be done all in one piece. So not too shabby. And again, all the way back down. So I'll take that piece. I kind of did that thing there, so I guess I'll do it there too. We'll go around nicely. Get the outside of this one. But again, all one piece. Don't worry, we're almost finished. Let's get that bump out as well. That piece. And again, I'm just clicking on the original pieces that I extruded. Again, another reason why to keep them and not necessarily Boolean union this all during, right? Because you might still need some of these points in order to trace them. And then all the way back down. Enter. And we've now got a huge rail piece. Not too bad. So from there, we'll double click. And how high is a handrail? 36 inches or 3 feet. Yep. So in my case, I'm just going to take that piece, I'm going to move it, and make sure that I'm in this view so that I can just move it 36 inches. Awesome. Oh, I accidentally moved a little bit. Let's try that again. 36. You want to definitely hold shift so that you can make sure that it's straight. From there, can anybody guess what we'll do to it? Pipe it, right? Or we could use a sweep, right? Especially if we wanted to go Louis Kahn and we kind of wanted like maybe a C shape or maybe more like a staple shape or something. You could definitely still do something like that. Again, the devil in the details. However, for the sake of tutorial and ease, I'm just going to pipe it. And I'm going to go with its radius being, well, typically I'm going for kind of a small handrail, but we'll go with like 1.5 total, so about 0.75 inches and 0.75 inches. Obviously asking for the first and the second radius. Point for the next radius. I don't know why it asked 3 times, but let's find out. And there we go. As you can see, let's take a look in a rendered view. Just like that, we already have the entire rail system of our stairs. Now, how many of you have spent hours on that alone? Now, let's get the rest of it, right? So we know rails don't float by themselves, so we'll go back to shaded real quick. And to be fair, I mean, why would we do all that again when we can actually just take the curvilinear element, so the curve. Oh, not that piece. Oh, come on, out of all the times. Okay, there we go. Let's get the curve. We know that the spacing due to code is about 4 inches, so I'm going to go with 4 inches, enter. Shift and click, and I'm going to do 4 or 8 inches now. Again, kind of want to get the next one. I'm going to go with 12 inches, 16 inches, 20 inches. Does anybody know why we use 4 inches? So that a baby's head will not fit through, just in case you were wondering. Looks like I messed up a little bit, but that's okay. Fake it till I make it. Put one there. And one there. So just like that, I mean, my goodness, can you imagine? I've already got a make 2D situation of my entire stair, right? Not too shabby. I can make 2D, I can put that in Illustrator, I can cut it in section, I can do all kinds of those things. But hopefully you're starting to realize, especially in architecture, now we make the model first, right? And now we actually abstract the drawings or the sections or the floor plans now from our main model, right? However, from there, let's pipe the rest. And I will say we still need some balusters, but I will show that as well. So let's go ahead and pipe them. And we'll go with a little bit thinner there. So I'm going to go with like a 0.25 of an inch. Awesome. Almost more like a wire. And definitely looking pretty good there, to say the very least. However, what's nice is I can turn off the stair at any given time now, and now the rails. So do keep that in mind. That's definitely important. But we're not finished yet. Let's get some balusters. So in my case, I'm just going to use a simple circle, or I'm just going to simply pipe it, right? In my case, obviously, I want to make sure that this is kind of at least believable, right? So I'll do kind of a short line. In my case, I could switch to this view, hold shift, and just make sure that it's straight. I don't think that was straight. Not sure what's going on there. Oh, did I accidentally copy too many? That's okay. But yeah, we just need a piece, right? So in my case, yeah, let's just do it with a circle because it is a little bit easier, at least for the amount of time that I have. So I'm going to start off with a small circle and basically extrude it. Oh, not extrude face, but make sure you extrude curve. There are a lot of different extrudes. Keep in mind, only certain ones work with other ones. So that's looking pretty sweet. And to be fair, I could just take that one and copy it a million bajillion times using my point itself. So again, let's try that again. I'll take that point if, gosh, why must it fail me? Anyway, I'll fake it till I make it. But clearly I could use this not on every single step, but I could really start to get the balusters. And in a pretty efficient way. Using the stair snap itself in order to make that happen. Now from there I could take each one. All right, so, whoop. You could take all those pieces. You can uncheck that one. Hey, there's that line I accidentally made. We'll turn it back on to turn off that piece. I'll mirror it. I'll use the midpoint of my stair itself. Hold shift, and voila. All right, I've got them on the other side as well. So again, I want to start seeing some really good stairs in Studio, right, to say the very least. Not too shabby. From here, let's talk about the very last thing, at least for the assignment itself. It does say that essentially we want this in a plan oblique drawing. Show bounding box, and that would be okay. We definitely want some shade and shadow. But essentially we want it at a 45. If you've never done an axonometric, now you will. And you'll learn that we can do it kind of like magic in Rhino. Now to be fair, for the longest time we actually had to use code. And it really is kind of a code-based system. So I mean, we literally type in this really crazy looking code into the command bar and it would kind of do the magic for us. However, now we have Grasshopper embedded into Rhino 7 and Rhino 8. So what I'm going to do for today is make a copy and basically shift that model. Now you'll notice if we go to our Google Drive, there are a couple of files I've already given to you. So if we go to our Google Drive and we go to Grasshopper, go ahead and download military projection. Right, and we'll download that somewhere. We'll put it in our desktops just so we can find it a little easier. And go back here. All we have to do is type in Grasshopper and the Grasshopper will load. And we can go ahead and click that Xbox, and I already actually have it loaded myself, testing it last night. So in our case, I've built kind of just a little algorithm thing, right, so that we can basically input a geometry. It kind of does its mathematical magics, and it basically outputs a geometry. How fantastic. But essentially, you can imagine that each of these are basically a Rhino command, right? Like such as pi, shift, and all these kinds of things, right? So from here, the orange will basically tell us, hey, there's a problem here. And in fact, if you go and hover over this little bubble, it'll tell you what problem it actually is. However, for my little eyes, it's very annoying that I can zoom in, but it doesn't actually make the text box bigger. But again, one of my own pet peeves. In our case, we'll actually take the box that we made a copy of. So in our case, let's take all of it. Make sure you're not in a command already. Take everything. And basically, well, it's not exactly a mesh. It's not exactly a geoid. So technically, it's a brep, right? Meaning actually it can include curves or solids, right? Which is a fancy word of saying brep. I'll right click on brep and I'll say set multiple breps. When I set multiple breps, it'll actually turn gray, indicating that it's now good. It won't turn green or anything like that, but it'll turn gray. Now in our case, usually it starts to generate a preview somewhere. Let's make sure it hasn't generated already. But if it hasn't generated, make sure you click on this little red render button. Once you click on that, you'll see that it starts to generate a very weird and skewed model. How interesting. Well, if we go to the top view, it's suddenly the perfect 45-45 of our model. How cool is that? You know what's really cool? As soon as you turn it, it turns the model as well. I can't tell you how many hours I've wasted doing something like this manually, right? So of course we can use different algorithms such as Grasshopper in order to actually influence our models, right? So again, I would like you to test this out. And this is actually all that's required for exercise 4 is just a axon view of your stairs, right? Of course, now on a portrait 11 by 17, right? So in our case, yeah, that's kind of looking a little messy. It's kind of overlapping itself. That doesn't work out too great. Actually, I might have nailed it just in the first instance there. That's actually not too bad. Maybe a slight angle there. But my goodness, Escamilla is going to lose his lid, right? Bohuslav too, he like freaks out each time I show him this. He's like, are you serious? Graphics 2 could be so different. Yeah, it could be, and probably will be in our lifetime. But that being the case, once we're not finished yet, that's really just a preview, right? So what we have to do is bake it. I'm not sure why it's called baking, but it's literally called baking. So I've labeled it output for us. And when you right click, you can of course bake it, but it shows a fried egg. So again, I don't know who's writing these programs, but baking the egg but showing a fried egg, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But we'll bake it, and we can actually set it to another layer. In my case, I've already used that orange and purple, so I'm going to go with like a different layer. I'm going to go press OK. And now it's actually there. We can turn off the preview for now. And to be fair, you can even turn off this preview as well, such as the preview there. However, once you click out of it, it's actually still running, so you don't necessarily need to save it or anything like that, right? You can always kind of reset the parameters. But again, what's really nice is now I can take this 3D model in this top view, make 2D, and of course in my case get hidden lines and maybe maintain my source layers as well. This usually does take a little while. I mean, think about it. It's got tons of pieces, tons of overlaps, tons of parts. But my gosh, so much easier than Graphics 2, right? Once that's finished, it always gets caught up at 92%. Today, Junior? Unfortunately, I can't do anything while we wait, but yeah, it's definitely taking some time. Obviously, if I wanted to take maybe less time, I would have just turned off the hidden lines. This is definitely something where you guys can use the rendered view and the make 2D lines. I don't just want to see the make 2D anymore, and I don't just want to see the rendered view. I really want to see them together, really from here on out. But now, my goodness, I've saved myself hundreds of hours just producing that entire view. Right, of course using Grasshopper. So again, from here, I would take that rendered view and my 11 by 17. So in my case, we'll go with 11 feet, enter, by 17 feet, enter. And I'll basically just keep that proportion. Again, not really scaled or anything here. I'll put maybe actually a nice view of the shade and shadow for those pieces, right? Sorry, let's get some shade and shadow in there. Realistic, rendered view. Let's type in sun. Get some of that sunlight. Make sure that it's on. Right. And let's go with a manual situation. And make sure you get some shade and shadow. Again, that Graphics 2 assignment just looking like, wow, you mean we could have done that whole thing in like a day? Anyway. But again, get fancy with the spices. Get some shade and shadow in there just because we totally can. And make sure you get a rendered shot as well. Any questions, guys? Pretty cool, huh? I think it's pretty sweet. The amount that we can get done now in a matter of seconds, especially if I didn't talk so much, it's definitely not too bad. But we'll leave it there for today if there's no questions. This is exercise 4. Keep in mind, it's not due until next Thursday. So next week is a pretty big day, or a pretty big week, I should say. Keep in mind, I still want to see your Miro screenshots. So we got Brandon and we got Leon already. Wonderful guys. And If we take a look at the schedule, yes, next time exercise 3 is due, and we do want to discuss those prints. You will print out all 3 for Tuesday. But this one shouldn't take you that long, right? Not as long as assignment 3. So definitely practice during the weekend, and that'll be due a week from today. Yes, sir. 3 different 11 by 17s. Great question. And we'll end it there for today.